employers and industry.
Question number 4, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he have confidence in the Minister for the Government Communications Security Bureau, the GCSB, given the Prime Minister's statement that the GCSB unlawfully intercepted communications in relation to Kim Dotcom? If so, why?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, yes, because as soon as the Minister was made aware of the issues in question, he called for an urgent inquiry by the Inspector-General of Intelligence and Security, and that an inquiry report has been released publicly into the House today.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How can he be confident that the Minister responsible for the GCSB is fulfilling his statutory functions to control the GCSB under Section 8(3) of the Act, given that the Minister has been unaware of the GCSB's involvement in the Kim Dotcom case until last week, a case that began in December of last year?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, it's important to point out the outcome of the report, which may assist the member with his... Well, actually, if Mr. Peters knew the outcome, he'd know that that question actually wasn't actually the correct interpretation. Firstly, there were two mistakes. The GCSB originally relied on police information about the residency status of people in question. They did not check further. And secondly, the error was compounded after their operation was concluded by a simply wrong interpretation of the law. Those are two very significant errors that have been identified in the report by the Inspector-General, and as the member will see, GCSB is taking action in regards to those matters.
Order. Before I call the member for his next question, there was the Minister's answer didn't actually answer the question that was asked. The question asked about the role of the Minister in relation to Section 8(3) of the Act with respect to, as the member asking the question alleges, to the control of the GCSB, and how he justifies that requirement of the Act, or how he lines up that requirement of the Act against the claimed unawareness of any involvement of the GCSB since November last year or sometime. And now, to clarify the situation, because I don't want to destroy the member's question, I think I should invite Dr. Russell Norman to repeat his question, because these are serious matters, and the member hasn't made any outrageous assertions in his question at all. He's cited the Act. He's asked how the member justifies what's happened given the requirements of the Act. Dr. Russell Norman to repeat his question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How can he be confident that the Minister responsible for the GCSB is fulfilling his statutory functions to control the GCSB under Section 8(3) of the relevant Act, given that the Minister has told us that he was unaware of the GCSB's involvement in the Kim Dotcom case until last week, a case that began in December of last year?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, I think a different way of putting the answer on behalf of the Prime Minister is that the GCSB was operating under the assumption, I think, that it didn't need to advise its Minister because of its interpretation of the residency status of the person involved, and obviously that's proven to be incorrect.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How can he be confident in the Minister's oversight of the GCSB when the Inspector-General of Intelligence and Security, in his annual report of 2011, raised concerns about the operation of GCSB authorisations to intercept communications? And so far as we're aware, the Minister has never taken any action to follow up with the GCSB as to why the Inspector-General has raised these concerns in his last report and what the Minister has done about it.
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, I'm not able to answer that particular element of the member's question today, but what I would point out is in response to GCSB raising the issue and the errors that they have made, that the Prime Minister moved very swiftly to act on these matters, called an inquiry immediately, and that inquiry has reported today.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the Minister aware that in relation to the GCSB there is no standard parliamentary select committee oversight? The Official Information Act effectively can't be applied because they have a defence for not releasing the information under any circumstances. And so the sole democratic oversight for that organisation lies with the Minister responsible. And does he believe that the Minister responsible is taking that responsibility seriously enough when we find out he doesn't know about the Kim Dotcom case that started in December?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, I think we're all very aware of the unique nature of the GCSB agency, and I think it is indeed indicative and underlines the Prime Minister's view of his responsibility in this regard, that when the matter was brought to his attention, he immediately called an inquiry into that matter. He has advised the public. The inquiry has been reported. I would say that underlines how seriously he takes his role in this regard.
Is this point of order a
supplementary question?
Supplementary question, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Given that for months the only person in authority in this country who seemed not to know about Kim Dotcom was the Prime Minister, and, well, it is true, for God's sake.
Order.
We all know that.
Order. Would the member please just ask his question? No, order. The member please ask his question.
Well, young Nick keeps on shouting out in the
Order.
It's very difficult over here.
The member just ask his question.
I know he wants to get back in the cabinet, you know. Given that for months the only person in authority who didn't know about Kim Dotcom or that plush mansion just down the road from the Prime Minister's electorate office was the Prime Minister, why is he settling on a narrow inquiry into just the GCSB when 5 other agencies, all responsible in one way to him, never ever told him?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, all I could do is point out to the member who claimed he'd read the report from the Inspector-General, but I now have my doubts given his question, that...
Point of order, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr Speaker, we do not want interpretation from that amateur. The fact is I've got 2 copies of the report in front of me.
Order. Now, order. The member knows that is totally outside standing orders and he is skating on thin ice. And, order. The member's question wasn't the most simple and direct question I've ever heard in the House. And the Minister is doing his best, I think, to answer it. The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
On behalf of the Prime Minister, Mr Speaker, I bow to the member's obviously very, very long time in the House, but my understanding is very simple in relation to this matter, is that GCSB made 2 errors in relation to this particular matter, and when they drew it to the Prime Minister's attention, he immediately called an inquiry. And I'm not quite sure what the member is asserting the Prime Minister should do in this regard, but the GCSB obviously made a serious mistake which is now being investigated.
Point of order, Dr Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As I don't believe the government has tabled this report, I seek leave to table the report from the Inspector-General of Intelligence and Security.
I think that's publicly available right now. We won't bother with that. The question number 5, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr Speaker, my question to the Prime Minister asks, did Media Works have discussions with him in relation to their application for a deferment of